I'm Darren Engler. I live at 29143 County Road 12, Winona, and I'm here to speak in favor of you voting to put the topic of enabling the CVR option on our voting machines on your upcoming agenda. I'm frustrated that I have to appear in front of a county board to convince them to vote to add an agenda item for discussion. I have to show up to convince them to vote to then put an important issue on a future agenda. Does this seem cumbersome to anyone? I would certainly hope they would take this up without their constituents showing up to voice concern. Although there have been many 3-2 votes in the past to not discuss important issues, I'm hoping this time is going to be different. I know we have many important issues facing us, but I cannot think of any reason you would not want further transparency of our elections. If you choose to shut down placing this on a future agenda, I will be asking why. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Maggie McDermott. My address is 31086 Nagel Ridge Drive. And I come to you today also on an agenda item that came from a previous board meeting on the 23rd of August relating to the social medical history of foster children. I come today wearing a number of different hats. I'm a resident of Winona County. Our family is and has been a foster family in Winona County for over 7 years. We have adopted children through the Winona County foster care system. In addition, I have my PhD and I'm a professor and a department chair in the College of Business at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. And I'm an engaged community member serving on a number of nonprofit boards in the region. As an adoptive parent, I was thankful that the board acknowledged the social medical histories are important. After all, the state mandates them. As a foster parent, I commend Karen Sanis for trying to find ways to assist her staff with their ever-increasing workloads. As you likely know, they have currently have been understaffed for a number of months, which has a direct impact on the time and availability they have to complete these state-mandated tasks, as well as serve current foster families. It's troubling to me that a month has gone by and this has not returned to the board agenda for further discussion. This is another month of overtime, another month of social workers being stretched thin, and another month of the dominoes that come from not having assistance with social medical histories. The conversation that took place on August 23rd centered around some issues with the company Evolve Family Services. It was noted they have a political and social agenda and it was quoted, I cannot give an organization like this taxpayer money. The alleged political and social agenda, or platform as it was referred to, is what's commonly known in the business world as a diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. These statements are on the forefront of most for-profit and nonprofit business strategic conversations in 2022. Everyone from Target and Kohl's to large nonprofits like the YMCA or smaller like the Children's Museum of La Crosse have been having conversations around this topic. DE&I statements are the business landscape of today. They are neither a political agenda nor a platform. In fact, the statements made that the request on the basis of the values of this agency is a political agenda. It was stated there is not a sense of urgency on this topic, and I implore you to reconsider that statement. The foster care division of Health and Human Services has not been fully staffed in months. The outsourcing of this important and required task is one way that you can serve Winona County. I think we can all agree your values of leadership and service can be executed by supporting any agency who values diversity, equity, and inclusion.
My name is Matt Marsalik. I live at 23914 Garvin Heights Road. I just want to echo what others have said about the cast vote records. I just see no reason why you not vote to put it on the agenda and then vote to turn on the option. You want transparency, this is one easy way to do it. You seem to be hiding behind things so people can't get access to it. It's our information. We should all have access. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here in the audience or anyone attending the meeting over the internet that would like to participate in the public comment period? If you're here in the room, please step forward to the podium. If you're online, please unmute yourself and get our attention. Is there anyone else here in the audience or attending the meeting online that would like to participate in the public comment period? And for the final time, is there anyone else here in the audience or attending this meeting over the internet that would like to participate in the public comment period? Hearing none, the public comment period is closed. Our next item of business would be approval of county board minutes.
I'll move approval of 3.1.
Second. Okay, Mr. Jacob has moved and Kavesi has seconded the approval of the county board minutes from September 13th of 2022. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Minutes are approved. The next item would be acknowledgement of receipt of approved committee minutes.
To acknowledge 4.1. Second.
Mr. Jacob has moved and Commissioner Olson has seconded acknowledgement of receipt of the Parks and Environment Advisory Committee meeting of July 6th of 2022. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes are received. The next item is the consent comments and the approval of the agenda. Commissioner Ward?
I will have one announcement at the end, please.
Mr. Kavesi?
Yeah, I have a couple of announcements.
Nothing for me.
Mr. Jacob?
I'd like to pull 6.5.
Okay. So we can make that 7.0. Anything else? And there's nothing for me.
Move to approve the amended agenda.
Second,
Mr. Ward has moved and Commissioner Kavesi has seconded approval of the agenda as it was amended. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, the revised agenda is approved. Interim Administrator Holte, could you read us the consent business?
Yes, Madam Chair. 6.1, approve renewal of Family and Children's Center contract for child welfare targeted case management. 6.2, accept certificate of performance and authorize final payment for 2022 chip seal project. 6.3, accept certificate of performance and authorize final payment for 2022 highway shoulder CP 2208. 6.4, approve amendment with Olmsted County for temporary inspection services. 6.6, confirm payment of disbursements.
Thank you.
Move to approve the consent business as read. Second.
Mr. Jacob has moved and Commissioner Olson has seconded approval of the consent business as it was read. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Consent agenda is approved. We will now move on to item 7.0, which used to be 6.5.
So, is it Megan? So, looking at the packet, it looks like we're proposing to hire her at $60 an hour. Isn't she in-house or what? I mean, I don't understand.
no, Megan hasn't quit and hasn't worked here for a couple months. So we're down a fully licensed septic inspector. We're down to one person and we can't deal with the volume. So we hope this is a short-term solution. And that we would be able to review applications this coming Friday, and that someone has septic training. That has not been my experience in the past, which is why we have requested the help in the westernmost counties from Olmsted County, from my compatriot Ben Griffith, the planning director for Olmsted, as well as in the other counties, or the other townships rather. Megan is somebody that, if approved, can jump right in, within the approval period for the MPCA. They also run it through their pipeline. So she's efficient and her record keeping is excellent. And so this would be a short-term solution until we can get somebody fully trained. Olivia Stransky, that I think most of you have met, is about halfway through her process and she's slightly ahead of schedule. So that'll still take most of 2023 for her to be receive enough mentoring and the appropriate classes.
Well, there's always, I guess, we can't micromanage anything here at the county board level, so I don't get to know when employees are coming, going, and what the circumstances are. But did Megan's departure have something to do with wanting to work from home and not being able to work from home?
I think that the flexibility factor in her case was certainly there. I think that everybody has to be asked that question individually. I don't want to speak for a former employee. I can say that the work she did in my department was excellent, and that if approved, she would do also excellent work there. I was very sorry to lose her. I told her that. Perhaps seeking other opportunities, state agencies, that kind of thing might have been her ultimate career goal. I'm not sure.
Well, I think maybe this is coming back to a policy that our board had set in place probably a year ago about when it would work to have somebody work from home. It would help both with parking issues, and if it's feasible for that person and it works, that we wanted those efficiencies. So my question, I guess, would be to the interim administrator. Is it my understanding that you're moving back entirely to in-house, and did you ever set that policy in place?
No, we are not moving totally back internal. We are working on the policy. It's one of the things that have fallen off to the side in prioritizing all the duties.
But if that policy was in place, we wouldn't be dealing with this now, right?
No, that's not true. There are many factors that played a role into it, and I can't discuss the personal situation of that individual. This isn't the place to have that conversation.
Well, it's on the agenda and it's public business. Where else would we?
That individual's personal life is not public.
Motion to approve the agreement.
Second.
Commissioner Olson has moved and, Commissioner Ward.
Yeah, I have a couple questions, just more on the process of licensure. So to be a septic system, that is licensed through the state of Minnesota?
Correct. It's licensed through, the training is accomplished through the University of Minnesota and the MPCA working in concert with one another. And then their mentoring process takes place, and then the MPCA signs off that you're now a certified inspector. In addition to that, a contractor that would be an independent contractor with her, if you approve this contract, then submits to the MPCA and says, does this work? She has to have her name on their list on the website, kind of thing.
Right. And they can be an independent contractor? They don't have to be tied to a government entity?
No, because there are septic designers out there that are separate from septic installers.
Mhm.
And so someone who's a designer is a licensed inspector that also does the drawings for, which she could also do, should she so choose,
Okay.
as an independent contractor.
And just thinking in the future, did the county provide the time and training for this individual? Or did they come into Winona County with this credential?
Virtually no one is coming into the county with this credential. There are many other areas that people need training in, but septic is the one that is, and pardon my soapbox for a moment, but the block grant money that we receive from the state is so vastly insufficient to the needs and hasn't increased. It's one of the few areas that I would certainly advocate for a change in that direction because it's expensive to train them. And if they leave, I'm starting the process over again 2.5 years later, and it's not the first time.
Right. And that's exactly one of my points. And I know in other organizations and everything, if the organization provides the dollars and the energy and everything to get them trained, they almost have an employment agreement that they will stay for X length of term to recoup that investment. It's just something to look at as far as policies moving forward. Not to say we need to do it now. How long do we do septic I mean, it's going to get cold soon. So can they go on through the winter? Can they put in
No.
septics? It comes to an end with
No,
the
this
cold
is a very timely thing, and it's taken a little bit of time to, the contracts have been approved as to form. In the case of Olmsted, it had to go back and forth through a couple of sets of eyes and MCIT as well. And Karen expedited it, so I do appreciate that. In this case, the MPCA will also have to take a look at it, not from an agreement with us standpoint, but just to have her show her credentials and put her on a website kind of thing. So yes, the septic season's coming to a close. That's why you could perhaps see me again in January asking for an extension of either of these contracts, should this one also be approved.
And the last question, are the inspections covered by our fees when they take out a permit for a new septic system?
No.
Okay.
They're not covered. The first inspection, maybe a second, but there are meetings and conversations with contractors as well as with the property owners and possibly with designers. And it's just extremely time consuming. And so right now, pretty much one of my staff members, the most experienced current staff member, is spending all of his time doing septic inspections and not making any headway. So that's why I have requested this respectfully.
So with that moving forward again too, our goal has always been to cover our costs, not to make a profit, but to cover our costs. So maybe we need to look at our inspection fees for septic and I understand they are getting more complicated and more design work and everything. And maybe it's just something we have to increase the fee on.
But also the fees for variances and conditional and interim use permits do not in any way cover costs too. So, I guess the philosophy has been my understanding, but from the department specifically, not to be dampening people from getting actual permits or in doing things behind the scenes because permit fees are so high. We'd rather guide them through the process, have it be according to the state agency and our zoning ordinance regulations, not make it too onerous. So there's a balancing act. And of course, each year we do review those fees, as you know, and appreciate any input too.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Mr. Jacob?
We hire Megan, then we train her. And then for whatever reason, we part ways and we don't get to know that. But the public wants to know, full transparency. I don't know what's going on. This seems like a poor system. So then we hire her back at $60 an hour as an independent contractor. When we had her on board, I think there's something going on that we're not, as a board, fully aware of with respect to our policy that we put in place with working from home and the advantages that might provide both to our employees and to parking. So I don't know if that's a conversation we should have in the future. I don't have any questions about that. Megan is completely qualified and capable. My question is, how did we get to where taxpayer trains her and then somehow we part ways and then we end up hiring her back at $60 an hour? That's what I think there needs to be further conversation on. We're not being part of this and something's happening through administration that we're not aware of. The public is frustrated with that. I am too.
I would just add that $60 an hour with no benefits is a bargain, Steve. The county's saving money, so.
I think at least this way we're getting the benefits of the training. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Commissioner Olson has moved and Commissioner Kavesi has seconded to approve item 7.0, which is the agreement with Megan Cabelli to provide temporary certified septic inspection services. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Next item is 7.1 to discuss or approve the 2023 Citizen Advisory Committee process and timeline. Is there a presentation?
Really, it's laid out within the packet, Madam Chair. So what we did change in this next round is to not have discussion until after the first meeting in January, so that we don't rehash the whole planning and Board of Adjustment situation of the ELA. So that revision is in this process. That would be really the only change.
Discussion? Otherwise, I do have a question. No, Commissioner Wall.
Yeah, just, it's more of a observation such, so we sometimes don't fill all the slots in January. We have ongoing. And then we get people that apply, throughout the year. And I'm just wondering if that's the best way to do it. I mean, they're willing to serve, they apply for the positions and everything, but we don't have a pool of candidates to fill a vacancy. And again, this is just going forward. If we should continue that policy, we fill them if a person, files after the determination or the committees are established, and we get some applications in the spring or late. We just had an application last month for a term. It's just something that it's a little unclear, because many times we have more. Well, sometimes we have more people that apply, but they have ranking of what committee they want. And I don't know that we've always kept that in mind when somebody applies for an opening. I mean, probably not explaining myself. Somebody applies and they put down 4 committees, and they usually get one of their first top 2, but we could potentially have the case where they wouldn't get any of their committees. But then we have somebody halfway through the year apply for something else, and maybe that person would have been interested in it.
Madam Chair. Since the process changed where they started to say their first, second, third
Right.
choice, I'm not aware of anyone that hasn't been put on a committee, because the policy allows you to see if they want to be on one of the other committees. So I'm not aware of, since implementing that we've had someone apply who wasn't put on a committee.
I agree with you, but I think I can, and I can't tell you specifically, but I think we've had people that may have had a committee that has an opening that, well, maybe it was their third or fourth choice, and maybe they would, if they knew a position was still open. But it's something to keep in mind, and maybe we need to somehow address it.
Commissioner Kavesi.
Yeah, I just have an observation also. I think some of these included their application papers, and I know that ours is a bit convoluted. So at some future time, it might be helpful to review our application package for volunteer committees, and with the idea of simplifying them. Ours, I think, resemble full employment. So you end up putting whether you have a driver's license, some really extraneous information on there. So just when we have a chance to review those and simplify those, I think it would help.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, we actually review that every year, and the issue is that we use our Ultimate Chronos Group program, and we can't take any more out. What fields are there are required. So unless we go back to the paper process, we wouldn't have an electronic program to do that, but we most certainly can go back to paper if that's the preference of the board.
Yeah.
We
I don't think
do
it
provide, I'm sorry.
They can apply on paper if they want.
Yeah, and I don't think it keeps anybody from applying, but I have heard,
had people complain about it.
I've had people complain about it, that it's onerous and it just
Really?
seems kind of like, why would I go in that direction when I want this over here, kind of thing. But
And also, many of these applicants, if they don't get on what they want one year, they reapply the next year. And they're wondering why they can't just have something on file and not have to come.
May I?
Yes, please.
Actually, once they have a presence in the system, so once they create an account, all they have to do is update their information. Meaning if they want a different committee, they just have to say, I'm interested in 1, 2, 3. So the data is there, their account's there, they only have to update it. So there really isn't the need to put all of that in the system. It stays there.
But will they find that when they go to, won't they think they're doing a new application? Connect with their old information?
Well, it's their email address, so if they've changed their email, that could be a situation of where they wouldn't find it. But they most certainly can contact us and we can tell them if they have an account, if that's helpful.
Everyone else is done. So I know there was a concern last year because Mike Flynn, I think, probably had a new phone number and he couldn't be reached. And so then he wanted to be reappointed, but he wasn't notified. And I had called him on the phone and yes, of course I want to be on again. So would it be possible if there are people up for reappointment and staff has been unable to reach them? So I see that we've said that the recruit and accepting of applications goes through December 7th. So could we say at the meeting prior to that, or at some point, just with a week or so in advance, if there are individuals who we haven't been able to reach that but that are up for appointment, you could let the commissioners know.
I don't see a problem with letting you know that.
And that way, if you knew specifically that that individual was likely to want to be reappointed, then you would have the opportunity, if you knew their contact information, to reach out to them. Thanks.
Right, so I'll move to approve the process and timeline for 2023. Always subject to review and enhancement.
Second.
Commissioner Ward has moved and Commissioner Jacob has seconded to approve the proposed Citizen Advisory Committee process and timeline with the requested adjustments. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Just as a note to the public, there are openings, so pay attention if you want to be on some committee to follow our process, please.
Yeah, and so for information on today's packet, which you can find on our website on pages 65 and 66, you will be able to see the committees and which vacancies are going to be available for 2023. Item 7.2 is potentially approving a resolution setting our preliminary levy.
Oops. Somebody move back.
Dance game.
Clap.
Like a-
Yeah.
Energy efficient.
It's my understanding, based on a conversation at the safety committee meeting, that the part that needs to be put in place to fix this and is broken costs $34,000 because it is no longer being produced by the manufacturer. That is the issue.
Heidi, just keep walking to the school. Thank you.
This is a topic that we've had several working sessions on. And as you know, we have to set a preliminary levy, and the final levy that's set cannot exceed the preliminary levy. So we're kind of setting a ceiling at tonight's meeting. This is being done all over the state. We will not stop looking at the budget. We will, set a ceiling tonight, and then we will continue to see if we can chisel away. So I would move that we set the levy increase at 10%.
I'll second that. With, aren't we also including monies from reserve? Been said in that?
It wouldn't be part of the motion because you're just setting the preliminary levy. I'm sorry, I didn't hear your last comment.
Because we had discussed having some 1.5 from reserve.
Yes, okay. Is there further discussion? Mr. J.
Well, I'll just reiterate what I've said in the past, that this budget is being largely influenced by the jail that I did not vote for. I voted against. I'm willing to look at further into outside agencies and even potential cut in services if it had to be. And I think our reserves are very adequate too. So I'm not going to support a 10% increase. I wouldn't support anything more than 0.
I just would like to remind Commissioner Jacob that currently we're paying approximately $50,000 a month for our inmates on housing them in other areas, where that cost will go down, and that money will be spent here in Winona County on people that spend money in Winona County. We went through the budget. There were several things that you wouldn't cut all year long. You've supported our county employees with their cost of living increases and their union contract settlements. And suddenly when it comes time to pay for it, you won't take anything more than 0. So I don't know how you expect to increase wages and not pay for it, but I understand that you won't support anything more than 0.
A point of clarification. So you, in the funding, you say $2,088,539, 10% tax levy increase. Is that totally include the $150+ million for the bond payment?
Yes.
So if you took 150 million,
1.5
1.5 million, I'm sorry, millions and billions run together these days. So if we took 1.5 million off of that, it would be approximately a 7% increase. Is that approximately? That's, okay. Yeah.
Each levy, each percent is about 208-ish.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
thousand.
And again, I have never supported levy increases anywhere near this amount, and I won't again today. One thing though that I think is built into this budget and this levy is a fully staffed jail, and the jail is driving a lot of increased expenses. So is our budget anticipating a fully staffed jail, employee wise?
It will be fully staffed at the end of the year, yes.
Okay, so that's a lot of dollars in staffing, which you all said is our payroll is our biggest, amount in our budget. I would like to know, I've kind of tracked it, but I haven't kept accurate records. How many prisoners has Winona County had in the system over the last at least 2 years? Because aren't we staffing for 80 prisoners? Have I got that right? Or is it 50? What are we staffing for?
I think I just sent an email to you that was 80.
80. That's what I remember. 80. I don't think we're going to have 80 prisoners in that jail. I also don't think we're going to find people to work in that jail. I think hiring is going to be a big problem. But I would like to, before, we always talk, we can reduce. And I think in your email also, you did indicate that Officer Buswell was checking with the Department of Corrections to see what like a 30 inmate staffing level would be.
Correct.
And just to see how those figures play out. I think that would be significant. Thank you.
Mr. Jacob?
This year, as in every year, Winona County government is fully funded. If somebody doesn't defend the taxpayer and ask government to tighten its belt, it never will. 10% still. That represents fully funding Winona County government and every department at worst case scenarios. If you'll notice, every year, year after year after year, we draw from the reserves in order to balance the budget for the next year. That's because worst case scenario does not happen in every department every year. The money is always there. We're taking more than we need. I'm willing to tighten the belt and defend the taxpayer.
Commissioner Kavesi and then Commissioner Ward.
Thank you. Yeah, we have looked through the budget very carefully. We started with a 5 million difference between income and revenue and income or expenses, excuse me. And the budget this year especially is, it's kind of like the perfect storm, the worst storm, maybe like the hurricane coming into West Florida. But these are things that have to be paid for. We have, this budget has nothing extra in it. So we're talking about tightening your belt. We've just had department heads up here saying they're short on trained staff, extremely short. There's no new staff in here to relieve that pressure and to fully staff our departments. This is a thin budget, and it's an unfortunate coming together of things that have to be paid for.
Mr. Ward?
We had an opportunity just a few short months ago to use ARPA funds. And they changed the rules on us. Initially, they said we basically had to give it all to different organizations, everything. And they changed the rules and they said, well, counties and government entities could keep a big chunk of it. We chose not to do that. It could have been a short-term help in reducing the levy, and the board chose not to do that. I was disappointed in that, but that was the board's decision. It could have been a short-term relief to some of this increase. The other item that I asked for last time is, will we be able to put the bond amount on a separate line item? Yeah. Going around campaigning, I've been talking to a lot of people, and the big worry is if we throw the bond payment in our total budget, it never goes away. It just gets consumed and everything, and it stays there. Whereas maybe I'm naive, but I feel if we put it as a line item on a tax statement, we get the legislation and we get the voter approved referendum, it goes away very quickly. Is that something that we can do? I'm getting a head shake.
I'm
Yes.
shaking yes.
Okay.
Not that we can do it, but yes, you did ask for it, and yes, we did look into it. My understanding, again, Mr. Moga and Ms. Sukla are here, so please correct me if I misstate this, that we are not able to modify it because there's only so many lines available on the document.
Oh, I got plenty of white paper
Well,
on my
yeah.
bill.
That may be the case, but it's a formatting, the program issue is my understanding, and that we're not able to make that modification.
I'm not buying that just yet.
Mr. Moga?
Computer formatting and corrections is,
I'll say what I know and.
Pat, come up to the mic.
I'll state what I know, and if, Sandra has something different, she can come. We can't put it actually on the tax statement, but that this year there's going to be an insert that's going to basically identify, how much is for human services, general fund. In that insert that we're looking in to see if we can actually include another line for debt. I mean, it kind of states exactly what's needed, and debt isn't actually one of because debt is actually under the other category, but we're looking to see if we can expand that and actually have debt as one of the categories.
Who's providing that insert? What is that?
It's an insert that actually was through legislation that says that we have to have it as part of the TNT package.
Okay, so that's something relatively.
It's new this year.
Okay.
And
Could you
it's going to
send
be,
us could you send us a sample of that? Do
um,
you have a sample of it or something? So
we send a sample of that. Okay. Yep. Sandra said we can.
Okay, I'd like to see that sample.
Okay.
And
Sounds
if there's white space on it, I think we can figure it in.
good. Okay.
It costs too much, but you could write it in.
Well, we could sit down and write them in. I write on a lot of things and I could eat every night. I could do,
You could do it.
Couple hundred.
Get your grandkids to help.
get a couple hundred, or you buy a stamp and
There you go. You have to fix the number though.
that's right.
Is there further discussion? Otherwise, I do have a couple comments. So I want to point out that in our discussions about the preliminary levy, it is the preliminary and it could go down. I hope that it does. Part of the concern was that we will have a better feeling about reserves at that time. And so it is potentially possible for us to take some additional reserves and reduce this below the 10% tax levy. And it is a continuing conversation about the jail, but there are a few things I would like to point out. The annex, as it was remodeled, was supposed to be good for a certain set of years. And if the county had actually taken action 10 years ago, when it might have been less expensive, Houston County spent 8 million, not 28 million. So had we taken action sooner. So Commissioner Kavesi's right in terms of it being a perfect storm. Because of supply chain issues and the pandemic, we are now stuck in this position in this particular year, having to fund one of our major investments. And yet, Commissioner Olson is correct. The research showed that to not take action was not going to cost less. We do have a state mandated requirement to provide a jail. So we did levy 3% of the 7% in 2022. So this year's increase is more like 4%, not the entire 10. And I'm thinking back to the conversations that we had at our last meeting and how we are faced, after going for a number of cycles with no health insurance increases, we are faced with a large increase this year. So there are other extenuating circumstances that have made this a difficult year. But I am really grateful to administration and to the staff, because when we started with a $5 million shortfall, staff went back and all of our departments cut out things that were not essential. For example, I know we're not getting water bottle fillers because we had to cut back on things that just were not essential. So for that, I'm really grateful for the staff. And I am going to support this levy increase, but I do hope that we can reduce it when we come to the end of the year and have a better understanding of our situation. Is there further discussion? Hearing none. Commissioner Olson has moved, no, I'm sorry, Commissioner Kavesi has moved and Commissioner Olson has seconded an approval of this resolution in our packet, setting the preliminary levy at 10%. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Our next item is to discuss the commission fee and fee schedule. Mr. Olson.
Maureen, could you just clarify if I'm reading that correctly, that 6% commission and the 500 maximum collection, would that be that similar to that situation that we're trying to deal with?
Yes, so meaning that it would be per levy, so there would be a max on the fee.
500.
Yes.
I had a email exchange and I'm now the enemy. So
So it's 6% with the maximum, I'm sorry, is there,
Yeah,
please go ahead,
Claire-
Commissioner Ward.
clarity. We're talking about this one individual that there was a very large,
right, like
Amount.
$20,000.
right? And I'm sorry, I don't see that 6
It's on
The fee
page
schedule?
83.
in the fee itself,
Uh-huh.
okay, in the lines.
Oh, it's in bold. It's on page 83.
Yeah.
Kind of, there's one that's kind of really bolded near the top.
Just,
Oh,
wait,
okay.
I'm
sorry.
not done yet.
Go ahead.
So just to clarify with Karen, statute said we had to set a percentage. Now I understand that we were gonna try to find some relief. I don't know if we ever got there, but I don't think we did.
Did, and Assistant County Attorney Alex Tillman is on the Zoom there, and he did the research on this. And you can ask Alex, he can go into great detail about it, but the basic bottom line is that in this specific case, the unique case that was part of actually a trust in a probate, in order to, if you want to say, claw back that, the money that was assessed, the county would have to file in a probate case and reopen a trust, which I'm not sure you want to do. And so the answer really for going forward is this 6%, but no more than 500.
So
I mean, there's a lot more, if whoever you've been talking to, there's a lot more behind what happened in court.
I
Than what-
understand
what we
there's
discussed.
more, but I'm talking to an individual and I sat here with my fellow board members and we all agreed that that was kind of a situation that we should offer some relief.
And we fully investigated it, and I think that and Alex can speak to this, and he just turned on his camera. So I'd be good if you hear from him
Yeah.
because he did the research
So,
on it.
so Alex, just I don't know if you were up to speed with what our discussion was, but I think the five of us all agreed that this was just a little bit egregious of a charge, and that we would like to find a way to get some relief if we could. And I understand it's a difficult process, if not impossible, but it is. It's not impossible, but it is possible. I did speak with the individual, but I exchanged some emails and he thought I was giving him double talk, and I would like, could somebody reach out to him besides me that could explain it to him?
Yeah, certainly, Commissioner. And if you'd like to hear more of the legal basis, here's kind of the wrinkle that we've run into. So under Minnesota statute 385.13, all amounts found at any time in any of the county treasuries of the state or officially deposited by the county treasuries are officially deemed public funds. Now, pursuant to Supreme Court precedent, the courts have ruled that if the state or its municipal subdivisions or agencies may only expend public monies for public purposes, and they've defined a public purpose as such activity as will serve the benefit of the community as a body, and which at the same time is directly related to the functions of government. I'm reading this from a Minnesota Supreme Court case called the Port Authority of St. Paul versus Fisher. And so the problem is, it's the basic tenet that we can't just take money that's been deposited in the public treasury and sort of give it away. Now, the basis for trying to find some type of remedy for the family here, I believe it's the Shoei family, under Minnesota statute 375.18 subdivision 1, the county board has the authority to settle causes of action. Now, cause of action is what we would commonly refer to as a lawsuit. Now, so basically, as Karen mentioned, if the family were to state some type of litigation claim, we would then have the authority under the statutes to enter into some type of settlement. But the issue here is that the cause of action doesn't lie with any of the heirs. It lies with the estate that's been closed. And there was actually substantial litigation between the heirs in this estate, which is actually what led to the 300,000 judgment that was levied and then how we collected the 20,000 fee. So basically, it's just to say that we need to be very careful who we were to give the money to, because the beneficiaries were arguing over this presumably for several years. And actually, I would advise that it would be one of them, one of the showy beneficiaries would have to petition the court to reopen the probate and get reappointed as an estate. So Commissioner, that's kind of the issue that we've run into in terms of providing relief to the family. It's just that there's the requirements of how public monies can be spent. The issue that once the money was deposited in the county treasury, it became public funds. And then the requirement that we can only give back public funds under certain circumstances enumerated in statute. And so I guess the opinion of the county attorney's office now is that it's kind of in the family's, the ball's in their court, so to speak. If they want to move forward, they'd have to try to get the trust reopened by the court.
I gave him a much simpler explanation, but essentially said the same thing. What really, I think, doesn't sit well is the actions we take today would make them $19,500 a head, or the family, the estate, all the heirs. So just by taking the action on the new commission's fee schedule. And we set the fee schedule, and I guess in this instance, I owe more than an apology, I feel. So I would like if somebody can reach out. I know that Temper said he's lost all patience with me. And I've been an advocate for him, so I'm frustrated as well as he is. So maybe we can make it work. Government can make it work. Please.
Question, our law is retroactive. We change it. We don't usually go, things
No,
aren't
not-
retroactive,
Not,
statutes and
I
everything.
mean, they can be, but they're not always.
It would be an exception.
It would be an exception, and this is an exceptional case.
Well, no.
Can we amend that into our motion to have this retroactive for 12 months?
Again, that goes to then how do we give them $19,500?
When the estate is closed.
Yeah, and the estate's closed. This was a
Yeah.
trust and,
Yeah, if it was open, that would
and,
be
right,
different.
and as Alex said, it's really in their court. No pun intended, but that they would have to initiate to reopen the probate matter and the trust, and
And I believe a family member has passed away since then. And
I don't
perhaps,
know the
well,
circumstances.
I know it's complex. So. They were neighbors of mine for 50 years, so.
So as part of what.
But now these, we do not normally approve changing the fee schedule at this point in our year. It's usually. So I mean, are we really approving? Or is this just a possibility to add to when we discuss all the fees? Because I haven't looked at the fees and I'm not ready to make a change on the county fee schedule at this point.
This says receive a.
So the only fee that's changing, the only fee that's changing, the one that we questioned for the
Well, that would come to us in December.
interim administrator, Hope, and then Commissioner Confessor.
The intent was to bring it back to you for discussion and then give us direction on what you want us to do. That's what I understood the board desired.
Yeah, just for clarification, we have 2 pages out of the fee schedule. These are excerpts.
Correct.
And one's on page 82 and one's on page 83. So the current fee schedule is what's on page 82, and the proposed fee schedule is what's on page 83.
Correct.
Okay. Because other than that one bold statement of the 6% commission, there's no difference between the 2 pages.
Correct.
So we would be able to go ahead and change just that one fee tonight, if that was a,
Board
if that was
chooses.
the will of the board. Okay.
Well, I would say to put it as a whole, the whole fee schedule, which is normally reviewed in December with that change and any changes are usually highlighted on that document. And I would suggest that it be highlighted and then we do it as a total fee package.
I don't, I understand the idea that we have to look at the whole package, but if we've identified this one particular issue now and we're ready to vote on it, I don't see why it would make any difference to put this one in effect now and then continue to review the package in December.
Well, I'm unclear. Is this by statute? This is allowed now? This verbiage, this 6% and 500 maximum, is that statutorily driven?
Alex, do you
Or
want
is
to
it-
address that? Or I know that Chief Deputy Miller was there and there was a conversation with Rod.
So,
So
Commissioner, to answer your question, essentially the fee schedule, the legislature delegates it to the county board to set with the advice and consent of the sheriff. So actually the particulars for this are in the discretion of the board as to what's set. I don't know that there's actually a specific statutory percentage that needs to be. I think it's whatever you guys determine is the appropriate amount. But like Attorney Sonneman said, the chief deputy is here and he was more involved in the creation of this fee schedule. I know they had assistance from an expert in this field, a gentleman by the name of, I believe, Rob Nelson. So I guess I would defer to Deputy Mueller if you guys have more questions about that.
Deputy Mueller.
I hope that's not really where you are.
Yeah, Deputy Mueller, what's your take on all that?
You have an umbrella coming out of your head too. So.
I'm trying to keep the sun off me. So when it was brought to our attention of this incident or this circumstance that Commissioner Olson's speaking of, we went back and looked at the fee schedule to make sure that there wasn't anything in there that we were doing inappropriately or wrong. And as Assistant County Attorney Tillman mentioned, we consulted a gentleman by the name of Rod Nelson, who does all of our civil process training and advises us on a variety of complex civil situations that the Sheriff's Department deals with. Looking for some guidance from him, in essence, as to what other counties were doing, if it was in line with other practices that other counties and things are also doing. He advised that it was, in fact, in line with where we were at. Upon further discussion about how we wanted to proceed and what recommendation we wanted to give to the board, I think all the arguments, in essence, fell in line with what the board has already discussed about the fairness or equity issues that you already spoke about. So us giving the recommendation when this was brought to light, at least anyway, of the uniqueness of this situation and perhaps giving some remedy in the future when the situation would arise again. That's the recommendation we gave. So.
Well, looking at the fee schedule in one line up, deputy time, $75 per hour in 1 hour increments. And if we're saying, so we've obviously spent much more than $500 on this one. So is it the, 500 max collection? I mean, if we come across a complicated issue again, is it the 500 plus deputy time to serve and lawyer time and all these other things? I guess I don't understand what.
Well,
500 is.
Commissioner, it's 6% or 500 on a bank levy, whichever is lesser. So the bank levy is just generally when the sheriff's office serves process on a financial institution to collect a judgment. So my understanding is it's not extremely time intensive. It's just a matter of filling out and serving paperwork to the proper parties. And that's
I think he's
the 6% is particularly just to the bank levy issue.
That's all I was going to add. Also, I believe that's just strictly towards the bank levy fee assessment, nothing else.
In all our histories, is this the only case that we've ever gotten really,
In my 12 years as county attorney, I've not heard this, but.
this has
who
not
knows
been an
before that?
ongoing, this
Yeah.
isn't a big problem within our system.
Let's hope.
This is an
let's
exception.
hope, Right,
Okay.
A big problem for them.
yeah.
Yeah, well, yes, but I mean, as the county,
It's
and
not
again,
a
we're the
frequent
purveyor of all the taxpayer dollars and everything. And we've spent a lot of time with county attorneys and sheriffs and Commissioner Olson and everybody. So it's not a big problem. Why? I guess it's always up for review every year. Can be changed, correct?
Correct.
It can be
Right,
changed
and
if it does become
Mhm.
an issue.
Is there any further discussion? So our options were to update, discuss, or potentially provide direction. Do we feel like we have the direction that was needed?
I do not have clear direction.
I would say in that one particular commission's schedule, fee schedule, that would seem much more reasonable. If the rest of them are in line with the true cost to the county, then I would support them.
Yeah, we really have two issues that we've been discussing. One is any possible relief to these parties. And the second is the change in the fee schedule. The first one is one where perhaps we have given direction that there will be some contact with the family made by someone other than Commissioner Olson or someone with Commissioner Olson. So I think that direction has been set. The second part of it is if we're ready to say, the change in the fee schedule looks reasonable and we would approve it at this time, I think. Is that okay?
Did they review all the fees there?
No, I understood that we would be doing that at year end.
Yeah,
Right,
right. I
And
mean,
Only
yeah,
this change.
just that one commission.
That one fee,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. So the sheriff's department needs to go through all these others and
Yes.
determine.
right.
Because I think the cost of cassette tapes went up considerably. versus the cost of cassette tapes. I think that's an inflationary item.
I was going to say, if you can even get cassette tapes anymore.
We don't have 8 tracks down there, that's right.
So to play it somewhere.
As
Yeah.
Madam Chair, as far as the
Please proceed.
first part, I would be glad in my capacity as county attorney with the assistance of Mr. Tillman to contact this family and explain to them the situation that what the law is, what's happened here and the consequences or what would need to be done, not to give them legal advice, but to explain that we're not in a position to reopen a probate case.
Right.
So.
Would you take the
And
Sure.
I would just like to say that the goal would be to find them some relief. That's the goal. I know we can get there.
But we can't give them the
I
legal
know.
advice. So I
Right.
mean, that's a
Yeah.
fine line.
It would be up to them to decide
What they
what
want.
they want to do.
So just to move the conversation along, I will move that we change this one fee now effective as of this meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Commissioner Meyer.
That's me.
Read the name tag. No, made by Commissioner Meyer to approve the one change on the fee schedule that's highlighted on page 83 and seconded by Commissioner Olson. Any discussion?
I do have one question.
Yeah.
Is commission the right term? It just seems like an odd,
I received that directly from the statute.
okay.
As well
All
as
right, if
from
it is, it just
Mr.
seems like an odd term for this situation. Okay, that's
Is
fine.
commission misspelled? Does it have 2 S's?
It does have 2 S's.
That's very possible.
Sorry.
The big commission is
They
wrong.
jump,
The
those,
little one on the left is right.
those
Thank you.
things jump out at me. Okay, the bold one is, all right, so Any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor of approving this one change in the fee schedule signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Okay, the motion passes. Thank you.
Do we need to put an asterisk on that and the date that we changed it?
There will be a fee schedule that'll be changed with the
Changed
date
with
on
all of
top
it.
effective this date.
Take the gavel back again.
Yes. Okay, we're ready to address item 7.4, discuss or provide direction on establishing written policy and guidelines for public funds given to outside entities.
This is a request that I made, and this would be our third meeting. So I don't expect that we will decide on the policy tonight. What I am hoping is that we could agree maybe to set a working session to discuss the policy. The issue is, back in 2017, the county attorney's office provided us with an opinion that it would be in our best interest to have a written policy that would identify, for example, what the Minnesota statute tells us, and in terms of being able to make distributions of funds. And then that policy perhaps contain, because we have specific statutory authority, that then we ask for that authority, and we ask for the agencies to define for us the public good, which is the work that gets done legally based on the statute. So I think it kind of lays out then the legal requirements. And we do have a couple example policies in here, and the first one in particular, they do kind of relate to those items that were really brought to our attention in this memo from the attorney's office on 2017. So what I'm hoping is that we could agree to, at some future date, and I am not in a rush for this because, we've already set the preliminary levy for the year, but that maybe sometime in 2023, we could have a working session to actually look at some examples. So that is my request. So the short version is that the board determine to have a working session to review and perhaps derive a written policy and guideline for outside agency funding. Sometime in the future, yes.
Sorry, I did look to see if there was any changes since I drafted this memo in terms of the law and anything from the state auditor's office, and that's where I obtained some of the information here too, and there hasn't been any changes. So going forward, this would still, at least from my perspective, be good law, and I would stand by.
Commissioner Ward.
I would agree to a working session. There's a lot of good stuff in here, but there's a lot of stuff in here too.
Well, and those are
And
examples,
yeah,
right,
the
from other
examples.
states,
Right,
actually,
other
that
states.
may not have the same laws we
Right,
do.
and so I would, before we have a timeline, before we have a working session, maybe just to query other Minnesota counties, because I know other counties have policies. And some I think are very, very loosely written, and I think maybe we'd find some that would line up with our statutory requirements. So that'd just be some of the research we'd do.
So would you like to second my motion?
I'll second your motion for a working session at some future point.
Okay, we have a motion made by Commissioner Meyer and seconded by Commissioner Ward to set a working session to review and provide guidelines towards a written policy for public funds given to outside entities. Is there further discussion? I appreciate the examples that were given, but it also would be helpful, again, as Commissioner Ward said, to have some local examples or some state examples. And possibly it was just because the way some of these examples were written and that they don't fit our circumstances. But I wanted to be clear, this these guidelines do not address what we consider contracted services.
Correct, these are giving funds
Right.
to outside
This,
agencies. and
this is the budget discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Although I did, so.
One of the
part of
examples
Yeah, like,
sort of made some distinctions about that, but, which I
in,
thought was interesting, but
and I had to go look up your memo because we had it back on the August 23rd meeting. So there's a quote in here from the state auditor statement of position in which they say, because it has to be for a public purpose. As an alternative to a donation, a public entity may enter into a contract with an organization to accomplish tasks that the entity is authorized to perform by statute or charter. For example, county can't give money to the Boy Scouts for a recycling program, but they could enter into a contract with the Boy Scouts to do part of the recycling. So yeah, it does. I mean, part of that is, I think, probably why we do have contracts with some of those agencies.
yeah. Okay, are we ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor of setting a working session to review and provide guidelines for public funds given to outside entities signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Thank you. The motion passes.
Thank you. The next item is agenda item 7.5. Approve, deny future agenda item to discuss activating the vote cast record mechanisms in voting machines.
Okay, and I brought this up last time, so tonight we just need 3 to agree to move this forward. But I think with the public comment and with the elections coming very close to us, what limited research I did, cast vote record is an auditable document that reflects the selections a voter makes on a ballot. It lists the contents and it lists the voter selection. So I think it's to be transparent and open. We've been asked to turn these on our machines, and I think we needed to move it to the next step in our discussion.
Commissioner Olson.
Before it goes any further, just, I have an example I want to think about. Let's say you had a small township, 5 people voted, cast a vote. So you get the record that, 5 people voted, who they were because they signed the books. And now we know who they voted for. Is that how it works?
That could be how it works, and if you do decide to discuss this more fully at the next meeting, I would prepare a memo to fill you in on the laws as they relate to the cast vote or anything to do with elections. And the bottom line, and I'll give you this ahead of time so you can think about this, is that the county boards in Minnesota, the only authority that you really have in elections is to decide who is going to be serving on the ballot board and whether or not you want to have a drop box for an absentee ballot. Everything else is in the discretion of the election official who's in charge of elections. And that's the auditor treasurer. You can talk about it, you can make recommendations, but you cannot, this is not a decision that the county board can make. So,
Really?
yes,
Our hands are tied.
that's the law.
Well, I'm glad Ms. Sukla was here tonight to hear all that.
Well, and she and
she's-
I have talked about this,
Yeah,
so.
okay.
And I'll tell you too, the Minnesota County Attorneys Association has also discussed this because every county has gotten requests
Right.
for the cast records. So, so it's not just here. We've formed a committee actually in the Minnesota County Attorneys Association, and I was asked to chair that, and that's what I'm going to do. But the law is very clear. The election official is the person in charge of the elections, and in Minnesota, the election official, where they have elected county auditors, as we do, is the election official.
Whereas if we had an appointed, then it would be under the
Well,
county board's
not
purview?
necessarily, but the county board would appoint that individual, and then that individual would make the decision. So there would be some,
checks and
probably,
balances,
well,
accountability, clarity.
yeah, well, I wouldn't call it clarity, but the law is clear, and that's 20686 subdivision 6, where and there is, as Commissioner Olson brought up, there are concerns about releasing that data because of small townships or unusual election precincts where people's vote, not only people's identity, but who they voted for can be determined. And that's a privacy issue. This is not a, I respect all the comments of the folks here tonight, as well as all the requests that the county has received for this information. Also, if it is released, it has to be randomized. And in 2020, the county did not have the ability to turn on this, I'll call it switch for the cast records.
Hey, a call for a point of order. This is for the 5 of us to decide if this is going ahead to the next meeting. This is the information that should be brought forward that we would want to hear at that point.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. So Commissioner Krivesi has asked to speak, and I think Commissioner Olson, so.
Okay, I also had a concern about the confidentiality issues with a small precinct or with just some unique situation. And also I need a clarification. The cast vote record is tallied to get an unofficial election night result, but not the final canvassed vote. I'm asking a question because the canvassed vote or the official vote includes provisional ballots or ballots that may need adjudication.
I think, Commissioner Krivesi, I think that's a great question to ask, and we would like to record it and get an answer
Yeah.
at the real discussion.
Okay,
and not
then-
try to go into those topics
Yeah, and I
tonight.
appreciate that goes into a lot of detail. And so I
Okay.
apologize for going into too much detail, but I just wanted to kind of make it clear that this,
Yeah, my other concern is just in terms of staff time, but to put this into place and how it's reviewed and things like that. But those are the discussions for next.
Yeah. if we
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
3.
well, as far as staff time, I have assigned Assistant County Attorney Tillman and Assistant County Attorney Ellison and myself. I call us the election law. So not one person is burdened with this.
Point of order again. The county attorney works for the board when the board asks for specific advice. This is going up way ahead of, you don't know what our discussion is going to be, what we're going to ask for. After we have this discussion, then we can ask you. But it seems like you're trying to influence the board before the board even makes a decision on whether they want to discuss the topic further.
I'm only stating what the law says.
Yes, I know. And the law also says that you work at the discretion of the board, and when the board calls on you for information, which you're giving information that we haven't called on yet,
Commissioner
I'm sure
Krivesi had the floor.
quite likely that we will next meeting.
Yeah, actually, I was asking a question, and these are some of the issues that I would use to decide whether we want to go ahead, but that's okay. I appreciate the legal opinions and some answer to the question, because I was considering the auditor's office also for staff time. None of our departments, as we know, are, overstaffed. So when we add tasks on, but I wasn't sure what kind of a task it added. So that's for the future discussion, but thank you.
Would it be fair to say that if commissioners have questions that come up, we can submit them in writing for so that there's some research on them in advance? That's necessary?
I would be fine with that as long as copy Ms. Holte with that. And so, any questions?
Commissioner Olson and then Commissioner Jacob. Were you ready to give up the floor, Commissioner Krivesi?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I had asked some questions earlier today of some candidates, and I was provided with the statutes regarding that's not the commissioner's call, it's their call if they're elected. So that's what I was told.
I'm totally unclear what you said.
That for us to approve or deny a future agenda item to discuss activating vote cast record, we have no say in it. That's what I was told, or that's what I read through the statutes that I was given. So I guess that's a future discussion if it goes there. But
You're
to be
saying this
transparent,
option actually belongs to the auditor's office and
that
not to the
function,
board?
yes, that's
Okay.
what I was told.
Commissioner Jacob?
Normally, we just decide whether we want to have this. Just about every commissioner's weighed in on this at this point. That's what
We
the next,
often have discussions.
this
on
is,
these
this,
things.
We do.
this is,
We do.
this is what our cumbersome process
Yes.
entails.
And time is of the essence, because November 8th, and
Yeah.
we already have early voting going on as we speak.
Yeah.
So I move to put this on our next agenda.
Could you state your motion?
Well, in our convoluted process, I move that we move to discuss and provide direction on establishing a activation of voter cast record mechanism in our voting machines in Winona County. At minimum, giving the auditor treasurer guidance and recommendations.
Yeah, of course, I will second that.
I'm not sure what the motion means by saying give the auditor treasurer guidance.
Well, if we don't have, quote, the authority, and that's not how I read it, but of course, everybody reads statutes and put things in their, and I'll have to go back and reread statutes. So if we cannot, it's totally the auditor treasurer, we can always give everybody our opinion. And it could be opinion that we would like it turned on, because we all represent the public, and the public is requesting it. So
Okay, so Commissioner Olson?
So with all transparency and the requests that were made, I'm not going to support the motion because if I read the statute, it said we can ask that it be turned on, but even if it's turned on, they randomize it and don't have to give it the information out. It's right in the statute that it's up to them to decide, whoever the auditor treasurer is. And I mean, we have our role sitting at this table. Auditor treasurer has their role running the election. We cannot dictate to them how to do this.
I didn't say dictate. I said we can provide them our thoughts and recommendations.
I bet you they know right now.
I think they should if they're paying any kind of attention.
This is an elected body. This is the process that the community would use to have full transparency, come to the podium. It's going to be on our agenda. They've made it clear they want it on our agenda. We'll have the discussion. And then if you want to vote it down, you have the opportunity to do it then. By not even putting it on a future agenda, you're saying that you pretty much already made up your mind that if it involves full election transparency, you don't want any part of it.
You have a way with words.
Well, that's how I see it.
Well.
No, what I was going to say is actually what I think is that if we go ahead and discuss it further, it takes up time. I don't know if there's staff time to prepare things for us to have on hand. And if by statute, we don't have this option, I think in many ways we have given guidance to the auditor treasurer. So I think, yeah.
Commissioner
Just
Olson and then Commissioner Ward.
Just to, I'll tell you what, I will support this because I just want to say no twice. So.
Commissioner Ward.
Obviously, across the nation, there's some concern about this. I mean, you said every county's having this request.
Yes.
So we're not an island and it's not isolated. At minimum, we need to bring clarity to our election process. If this is something that one person in the county representing 50,000 people has control of, maybe somewhere along the line, something needs to be changed, that it's a bigger group of people that makes that decision. I don't know. But I think in full transparency, people need to understand if we don't have the power to do it, then we need to share that. But from the articles and the publications and everything, I've been led to believe that we do have the power So this is something that we need to make clear to the voting elected and to the public. They know what their rules are and how they have to follow them. And if they want to change them, then they got to change the people in the seats at the table.
I didn't go to the My Pillow guy presentation, but I'm gonna vote yes.
Is there further discussion? I am gonna go ahead and support the conversation so that we can hear the full report and the legal assessment. And I think probably also the information about what the machines can and cannot do. I did have a question for Commissioner Ward, though.
Yeah.
In your very opening statement, did you say audible or auditable?
Audit.
Oh, okay, thank you. I was like,
Yeah, I had.
I thought that might be
Yeah,
one.
it-
Okay.
it's auditable.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
so is there further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of, okay, we are going to advance an agenda item to discuss and give the auditor treasurer our opinion and that was our guidance. And what else was the second thing, Commissioner Ward? Recommendation. Yeah. Regarding the vote cast record mechanism in the voting machines. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. We are now to committee reports and recommendations. Commissioner Ward, you had an announcement.
Yes, announcement. October 2nd, Sunday, the 4-H organization and community of Winona County is having their fall festival. It is a major fundraiser that they raise money to send kids to camp and to learn trainings and all kinds of opportunities. It is at the fairgrounds from 11 to 1. There's a meal served that you can purchase a ticket. There's a silent auction. And then at 1 o'clock, I think 1:05 actually is a live auction. So if you're not doing anything, Sunday looks like a nice day, drive to St. Charles and help out the 4-H kids.
If people couldn't come in person but still wanted to contribute, is that possible?
Oh, yes, they'll always take the money. Yeah. Just make it Winona County 4-H Federation if you want to write a check. Thank you.
Commissioner Kvesi.
Yeah, I just have a couple announcements. Treatment Court is celebrating its 10-year anniversary, which is no small feat. Along the way, they have won awards, and we have alumni who are active in the community. We have many alumni who are now full community members, paying taxes, having their families back together. Many changes because of the work of our treatment courts. So the 10-year anniversary celebration is October the 6th from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock at the History Center. And you can find more details. I'm not sure if there's registration.
We kind of want to know RSVPs just for food. There'll be food served.
Okay. Yeah. And immediately following that, luckily walking distance away, from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock at the levee, Hiawatha Valley Mental Health is having their second annual event called Darkness to Light, which deals with a very serious issue of suicide awareness in our community and community mental health services. So this is a very moving ceremony. So you could easily go from a celebration to a commitment or a broadening of awareness of suicide in our community. The last thing is Hiawatha Valley, and with the support of the RAPS Plus grant, is continuing the trainings that they're offering. On the 5th of October from noon to 4 is a session on motivational interviewing. And the previous topics that have been covered are posted on the Hiawatha Valley Mental Health website also, so you can go back if you missed some of the sessions. But that does have a registration. It also has a repeat date, I believe in November, but this first date is coming up. The second session is the very same. It's a repeat. It's not anything different. So you can register for that on the Hiawatha Valley Mental Health website.
I think that concludes our business for the evening.
Second.
Olson has moved and Commissioner Kavesi has seconded adjournment. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We are adjourned.
Yeah, I'll play that song for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not totally culturally illiterate, but I am pretty culturally.